No game is for everyone. You have hardcore games which exist just to make you question why you exist. Racing games that make you feel like a loser, especially when you try to play Super Mario Kart and notice that the AI is just attached to you with an invisible rubber band and has no trouble making hairpin turns. Casual games which admittedly are for everyone, except angry video game nerds that make gatekeeping posts that Animal Crossing is not a real game. The way games are made and who they're made for is always on the forefront of developers' minds. In the dark ages, games were simple pick up and play games that only got faster and faster just to try to make you game over. And then again, putting in a new quarter for a new attempt. Here I'm thinking of games like Pac-Man and Tetris. For what these games set out to do, you could call them perfect games. There were more big brain games created at the time. Let me show you an example. Here you go. Oh, you don't recognize that one? Well, that's Alien for the Atari 2600. But did everyone play them? No. They were mostly enjoyed by younger men. Pac-Man is a 40-year-old game with one board and a stick to control the game. Dying in this game is the physical death of Pac-Man on the screen. Now if you look at Tetris, however, the death of the player is more surreal in that sense. It kills you, the player's soul and will to live. And this really spoke to young impressionable men at a spiritual level. Jumping over to the NES era, home consoles were building themselves back up after the video game crash of 1983. Here, games are no longer focused on a single screen picture. Side-scrolling was a huge step up in how games were made. Soon we see our first story take place. But games were just a handful of kilobytes in size, so the bulk of the story was explained in text inside the instruction booklet. I'll read you guys this absolute masterpiece of a plot. Bowser is an evil sorcerer that has turned the toads into bricks and blocks, and Mario is the hero. Maybe. But why was the story written in the manual, you might ask? Well, we gotta keep in mind that using text in a video game was precious space that could otherwise be used for other elements like music, so expository text in games would get last priority. But what game is made for you? If I were to ask you what the most defining game of your childhood was, I would get 1,000 different replies. Ask any family member about what they remember playing as younger. Millennials, there's gonna be a lot of Super Nintendo, N64. There's gotta be a lot of GoldenEye, Super Mario World. Ask the Zoomers, probably gonna be FNAF, Fortnite, or Minecraft. I remember I asked my mom once which games she played growing up. Keep in mind she's 20 years older than me. And after I got the answer, I was sad out by the fact that Nintendo and Sony wasn't the only ones producing game consoles, as I had believed when I was 8 years old. I know what you're thinking. Come on, Knick. Don't you know about ColecoVision? But no. Actually, she said the Commodore 64, which was really redefining what game consoles could be at the time. Commodore 64 is an ancient brick of a personal computer, but it dominated the low-end computer market at the time, and only just got discontinued the year I was born. Anyway, if you ask the boomers, they'll tell you to get a job. Asking the coomers, they'll recommend you Lost Ark or Final Fantasy XIV, spending all their time role-playing in Limsa. And if you ask the average middle-aged dad consumer, he'll tell you he loves playing with motion blur. As games are sticking around for longer, we also experience a generational gap in gaming. How often are you being an elitist dummy when you ask a younger generation what their favorite game is, and they come back at you with Among Us, and the first thing you think to yourself is, yo, is this kid fucking retarded? Even if you ask old school World of Warcraft players, they'll refer to players that started in Wrath of the Lich King as Wrath babies, because vanilla WoW was so hard. Usually, when a game is made for everyone, nobody puts a whole lot of interest into the game. But when you make a game and put in activities for everyone to do, now you're pleasing a lot more different players. Games that have activities for all players to do usually are MMOs, being that they're constructed to be theme parks, with lots of achievements for different strokes of players. What game is this? Creative, survival, hardcore, and adventure. Minecraft. Psychologically speaking, it in some degree tapped into all Bartle's player types, which in part explains how Minecraft became so popular and then went on to make an action RPG that nobody plays. If you go to the polar opposite of the spectrum, a niche game made for the most dedicated of player base, all of a sudden you find yourself in the Tekken 7 community, where the learning curve is so steep that you have to watch my main man Stan's 36 video playlist explain the game's mechanics and functions. These motherfuckers are just happy to have new players joining them, so you can ask anyone in that community and become a student in learning the years of blood, sweat and tears that have used to master the game. And then you have everyone's favorite game, which everyone agrees is not for everyone, but still all the gamers I've talked to have played. Dark Souls. You really have to applaud them for just doing their own thing, which in turn boosted their own popularity and has made millions of players check them out. But there's one type of player I haven't talked about yet. The lore nerds. Today you have no game manuals explaining the story, but you have these psychos that like to watch community-made 12-hour videos on YouTube explaining every NPC and or obscure item in the game down to every minute detail. The Banished One's sword was passed down from his great uncle, and did you know if you go to the uncle's grave, there's this little inscription etched in the corner, which is a picture of 2 stick figures and a key lock. This could mean he would have a sexual relationship with his estranged aunt. The key lock could reference the time he was locked up in a cell with only a pocket mouse to keep him company. So if you go to the cell and collect the pocket mouse in the game from this barrel, the item text reads as following. The only thing that held him up was his fan following. But if we look at the Japanese direct translation of the item, it changes to the thing that held him up was OnlyFans. This is proof that the uncle was consumed by OnlyFans. Who knows what the future of gaming is? Have you ever found yourself thinking, if you get put into a geriatric center, that you'd have the littest Smash Bros tournaments, believing things were gonna be just as they were back then? Kind of how League of Legends players lull themselves into believing that the cancer tumor they have will go away on its own. In the future, people will live in megacities, and the gaming is so realistic it's super VR. There is so much to do in a game, you can play them for the rest of your life. Updates are constantly getting pumped out and are exploring new experiences. And then you have stupid fucking RuneScape over here still being enjoyed by subhumans. FIFA 99 is just around the corner, and it's finally a game for everyone. IGN had to increase their score for it and gave it a perfect 100 out of 10. The environments are so realistic you can smell the deodorant of Ronaldo's butt crack. And fan tweets now immediately impact the football players' performance stats. So, no game is for everyone, but there is something to do in a game for every person. Ladies and gentlemen, by looking at the evidence and analyzing the DNA of games and boiling them down to their core, I think we can conclude that this video is pointless and Touch Dick is the game of the century. Goodbye.